Djuma, and Arathusa to the west, and there are no fences between us and the rest of the untrammeled wilderness wonderland that is the Kruger National Park. Okay, welcome to it. Here we go. So this very straight road that you can see in front of us is the northern boundary of the reserve that we have to operate on. But as you can see, there are no fences between us and anything else. So to the left is a place called Buffelshoek, and to the right is Djuma, and you can't see any difference, at least, and we can't see any difference when the animals can cross freely between the two. And it's just us and our sort of Western property laws that don't allow the free movement of people to and from, which I suppose is fair enough given the number of people that there tend to be on the reserve at any one time. You might lose us briefly going through this dip, but we will go at some speed and you'll pick us up the other side. I'm going to go quite quickly.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that. It seems like the gremlins have invaded. Welcome. My name's Brent on this WildSafari Live. We are right in the northwestern corner of Arathusa, in an area we go to very, very seldom. So Andrew and I decided to come explore to see if we could find anything. There haven't been many reports of anything out here, but also it's not an area that's traversed very often. So we thought we just should come just explore some of the less explored areas of our traverse zone. Always nice. It feels like we're in a new reserve almost. Andrew was mentioning how it blends so differently into each other around here, and we are on slightly more sandy soils here, so good for looking for tracks. So if there has been anything around, hopefully I'll spot them. But for those of you who missed the sunrise safari, it was a little bit quiet, but we had lots of fun. James went wading in the mud, and we had a really good time looking at lots of different little things, as well as some really nice sightings of wildebeest towards the right at the end of the drive. And unfortunately we tracked a male lion for an incredibly long way, but he moved out of our traverse area. So at the moment there's been no reports of anything in this area, but it is one of those seldom driven areas, so that's why I decided to take a chance and come have a look here in the north and west of Arathusa. We're right on the boundary at the moment. Seeing if anything's crossed in from the west. Quite an interesting area a little bit further down. We found a lot of vultures' nests, so I want to go have a look at that area and see if there's been any activity there, whether there's been a hatching, and we might see possibly the tiniest little vulture head popping out of the top of one of those big stick nests. So I said, as I mentioned earlier, I've got Andrew, or as we call him in camp, the aardvark, on camera, and I'm sure James has dealt with the rest of the introductions. Very welcome back, everyone. Apologies, it seems like the gremlins are out in full force. Maybe it's this hot, dusty wind that's playing havoc with our signal. We're still in this sort of western area of Arathusa, in the area where I saw quite a few vultures' nests last time. So we're slowly making our way there to try see. We saw an adult sitting on the nest last time we were here. So let's see if we can see if there's been any new addition to the vultures of Arathusa. You can just see by the soils on the road here, it's quite a lot more sandy than a lot of the parts of Djuma. So slightly more open in places and with a lot more of these silver cluster leaves or terminalia trees. And you can see we're driving on the edge of what is a seep line, so it's more open grasslands down to the left with some interspersed with guarri bushes, and so good grazing in the area. You can see by the short grass. So hopefully we're going to find some grazing mammals shortly. If I remember correctly, that vulture's nest was just down here. Looks like a little bird party ahead. Here we go. Oh, it's moving. And we just, oh. Oh, what a nice view. Here we go. Don't fly. I just saw him using that very distinct curved beak to actually get under this terminalia bark here, and he pulled a grub out and just swallowed it quickly while he was flying between trees. So yeah, he just got that particular sharp curved beak under the bark and managed to rip a grub out. So lovely bird, very beautiful. What bird was it though? And you can let me know by sending your emails to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So give me one moment, I just need to try to deal with the radios quickly, and I will be back. You will have my undivided attention in a few seconds. Afternoon stations, Brent from WildEarth, crossing to the west. Are there any updates for Safari and out. Copy, thanks very much. So no updates just yet. No updates from that side. Tracks of to my daughter Ngala crossed south at Cheetah Cut Line Junction with Gary Main, and I think tracks of Mafazi Engwe went north into Buffalo's Hook, and that's about the only updates from this morning. Sorry, go again. Okay. Am I remembering? I'm pretty sure that Vulture's Nest should be around here somewhere. Unless I've meandered onto the wrong road, which is not impossible, just highly unlikely. Might have been that road there. I think I'm on the wrong road. Let's go back to the other one. And that Vulture's Nest is a little bit further to the north. So we should be at that nest in the next sort of 2 minutes. Let's have a quick look at that nest. So we'll be back at that nest very shortly. I just took one wrong turn. As you can see, hot and dusty and windy. And I remember this Vulture's Nest very particularly because the nest was actually over the road. Hi Janet, welcome on the Sunset Safari. Janet would like to know, are there any caves in the Kruger Park? Well, yes Janet, there are, most definitely, but none in our Traverse area. We don't have any of those rocky outcrops you do get in other places in the park. This Vulture's Nest is proving to be quite mobile. Hi, Donna from Maine. Donna would like to know, are there any penalties for crossing illegally into other people's property? There are, Donna, and every country has different laws when it comes to trespassing, and I am definitely no expert, so I don't try to plan to test any of them. We have a a go-away bird in the top of that marula. Really fond of this area on the edge of the drainage line. You can see it's quite a bit more open than other places here. So life's a bit more difficult for the go-away birds during the dry season, and there are a few winter fruits around a little bit later, but not too many, and they are very big fruit eaters, so times can be a little bit tough for them during the dry season, but they do very well in this area, and we do have quite a lot of them. So I just heard in my ear that I'm sure a lot of you would be very happy to know that quarantine male leopard has got a kill in a tree somewhere to the south. So he is well and has a kill. So he'll be a happy cat for a while unless one of the big males comes through and steals it. So as we dip down to this drainage line, we might have a few signal issues. I'm a bit worried that the gremlins are out in this particular drainage line, and I'm going to say one particular gremlin, the Tokolosh, which is a mythical African gremlin, but we'll chat about that a little bit later as we go see what Commander Bond's been up to.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Giga. I believe there are still one or two issues. Perhaps the sun has exploded and we haven't found out about it yet. Sam? Bob's friend seems to be back, so we are going to have a naming ceremony a bit later when the sun has started to set, because you know we need sunset for proper romance. I feel lights a the sort of candlelit naming ceremony that we're going to have a bit later, and we have decided, I'm not sure if she knows yet, that the ultimate arbiter of the name of Bob's companion will be little Gracie, aged 8, at the Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio. She will choose the name, and I will give her the two options later on as they come in. So we are now on the far western side of the eastern side of the reserve, checking a real high point up here. On a clear day, this is a beautiful part of the reserve because you can see way out to the basalt cliffs of the Drakensberg, and we're just on the hunt for sort of any kind of, ideally a pachyderm of some sort, which is an elephant, otherwise a cat. But it's been fairly barren out here today, I must say. Quite a windy day, which is fairly typical when it's quite hot like this in winter. We do tend to get a bit of wind, and that's not great for herbivores, but it's pretty good for the carnivores. Something's just told me to stop, and let's have a listen. Real lovely rustling of the combretum pods that you might be able to hear. Not much in the way of bird song. And just the very sort of gentle whispering of the wind. And sounds change.
Less than 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. We're still on the search for that vulture's nest. I'm just trying to remember where I saw it, and I'm pretty sure it's around here somewhere. It was right about, there it is. We have located. It looks like there might be something in it. I can't really see from this far out. I'm going to grab my binoculars. It was right about, there it is. We have located. It looks like there might be something in it. I can't really see from this far out. I'm going to grab my binoculars.
Howdy, welcome back to Jigger. Again, I can but say I'm very sorry that the technical issues are occurring. We really don't know why that's happening. I can only guess that it has something to do with the strange weather pattern today. Very windy, perhaps a solar flare. In all seriousness, it could be something like that, as Jean-Dre has pointed out to me. But we seem to be back online for now. How long it'll last, we don't know. We're heading straight towards Wuatela Dam. Apparently, there was sight of a leopard resting on the northern side of the dam, so probably out of sight of the camera. But that's where we're racing at 100 miles an hour, and we'll see what we come up with. Otherwise, we haven't come up with anything so far. Just a very pretty afternoon, a lovely smell in the air from the bushfires out to the east. Just going to turn the Game Drive radio channel up. When you are in search of leopards, you want to hear what everyone else is seeing. So we're nearly at the dam, and like I said earlier, roughly 3 times I think today, because of the various signal problems, we've driven around this area 3 or 4 times today, just trying to find if there are any tracks. Nothing's come out of the area where the 2 leopards that were seen last night were left. For those who weren't with us last night, and perhaps for new viewers, you are most welcome. Lovely to have you along. I promise it's not always technically this difficult, and we love to hear from you. Send us any questions you like. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarth.tv. And the 2 leopards that were found here are the big territorial male of the area, who's called Mbula, and Kurula, who's the sort of territorial female of the area, and she's a bit of an old duck but at the moment, and we're just coming into the area now to see if we can find her. There is a beefalo there. Howling wind. A whole lot of buffalo. So what we're going to do is go up onto the wall here, stop, have a listen, look for the buffalo, and then we'll head down and just see if we can't see anything to the north of the dam. It's crucial to stop and listen every so often because of the alarm calls that you might hear. So I'm just staring into the bright light with my powerful binoculars, seeing if I can spot any golden pelage with beautiful black spots. I'm not sure where the reports came from, possibly from the camp, from a staff member in the camp, or maybe a guest sipping a gin and tonic on their deck. Anyway, the water is slowly becoming scarcer as the dry season progresses, and these buffalo will want to stay as close to it as possible. They won't want to spend too much time away from the water, because as the foliage dries out, the more dependent on water they will become. We tend to, I feel slightly at WildEarth, we tend to overlook the magnificence of a buffalo every so often. They are, first of all, enormous. They're about 800 kilograms each, these giant old things. That's almost 2,000 pounds, a buffalo. And they're the old bachelors that used to be with the herd, and they're either too old or too tired to bother with the trouble of fighting over girls, and so they've come to live on their own in a sort of group of grumpy old men. And if you ever looked at a buffalo's face closely, you can see that he does have a particularly grumpy look about him. Alright, we're not going to spend too long here. I do want to go and look at the northern side of this waterhole to see if we can't find something in the way of leopard tracks or other leopard evidence in the way of screaming monkeys. There aren't any monkeys alarm calling at this stage. So keep your ears open, keep your eyes peeled, cross your fingers. Of course, it does pay to look south as well. And we're constantly looking at the road. You'll notice me constantly looking over the side of the Land Rover just to see if there aren't any tracks on the road. Nothing here so far. Interestingly, I can see what you won't be able to pick up on the camera, so I'm just going to tell you about it. Across the way, across the dam, there are a whole lot of impala actually lying down, which is quite unusual for this time of the day. With any luck, they're being stalked. A nice question from Ashley in the United Kingdom. Ashley, history doesn't relate which part of the United Kingdom you're from, but welcome to it and thank you for your question. I think we have heard from you before. Ashley, you want to know, are there any sort of game number control programs in place in the Kruger Park? So is there any culling, are there any breeding programs or that sort of thing? Certainly not on this area where we are now, and not anything major in the Kruger National Park anymore. I'm just keeping my eyes peeled around here for spotted cats. Gendre, keep your eyes peeled. Ashley, there was an extensive culling program at one stage to control elephant numbers, and that ended in 1996. And they used to shoot up to 900 elephants a day, not a day, a year, which is massive. They also used to shoot thousands of buffalo every year. And as our knowledge has increased, and as our sort of understanding has increased, so that those culling programs have basically stopped. I'm going to stop here and just have a listen. And Ashley, so we didn't understand, there was a lack of understanding as to the number of elephants that was the correct number for the Kruger Park. There's no such thing as the correct number, and we're coming to realize that now. There's no such thing as the correct number of buffalo. There were certainly commercial reasons for harvesting that many elephants, and those thankfully have stopped. That said, there's a huge scientific services division in the Kruger National Park that does a lot of research, and they will from time to time introduce various kinds of animals, maybe herds of sable, for example, which are quite rare, or herds of roan in the far north of the park. They might move in black rhino, for example, which have come from overpopulated areas in Natal or KwaZulu-Natal. So there are bits and pieces that go on, but there's certainly no large-scale culling. They used to cull impala quite a lot too, but the easiest way to curb impala numbers is to just close waterholes, because the impala don't like that and they tend to die off. So not so much in the way of hardcore culling anymore, thankfully. I still haven't heard anything. We're just going to drive through here a bit and see if we can't pick up some sign. I'm not sure where this report came from. I don't see any tracks. Of course, those buffalo would be in no danger at all, so they'd probably not react if they saw a leopard. Hello, Donna in Maine. What a lovely question. What do the lodges do with and camps do with their sewage, first of all, and their trash, second of all? Well, Donna, some of the lodges are a lot more progressive than the others, and I'm not going to mention no names, but sewage is generally treated in the French drain system, and then sometimes the overflow goes into very ecologically friendly reed beds, which tends to purify the water if they run properly. It's amazing what you can do with a reed bed. And then that's reintroduced into the system. So that's some of them. Then mostly with the trash, it's removed where there are recycling programs in nearby towns. Certainly most of the lodges will send their rubbish to recycling centers, and if that isn't the case, then there's quite a large scale sort of, normally the trash will be taken out to landfills that are quite a long way outside the reserve. But lodges are now becoming more and more required to be ecologically friendly, and for a long time, I mean, the concept of eco-tourism wasn't really eco at all. It was, I mean, the carbon footprint of a lot of these places was enormously heavy, and there's becoming increasing pressure for people to reduce that, to go off-grid completely. And that's what some of the lodges are trying to do now, without sort of compromising on luxury. Nice question, Donna. I'm glad I'm not a lodge owner, because if I was, I might be a little bit more awkward about answering it. Hello Pamela on Twitter. You'd like to know how many elephants there are in South Africa. Pamela, difficult to say. In the Kruger National Park now, there are probably about 20,000 elephants, which is quite a few. Some people will tell you that's too much. I would hazard that they don't know what they're talking about. Then the other large population is in Addo Elephant Park, and I think they've got about 3,000 or 4,000. And then there are a few others dotted about the place in private reserves. So, Pamela, my guess would be about 30,000 elephants in South Africa. That would be about my guess. Sounds like a lot, but when you consider the number of people in South Africa at 52 million, 30,000 elephants ain't a lot of elephants. Just checking around where the kill was yesterday. Now, I am failing to find any sight of a leopard here. Anyway, we're going to keep just slowly driving around the area. Leopards are obviously extremely cryptically colored. Watch your head there, Gendre. Right, I hope we don't tip over here, that would be very unpleasant. Right, we're going to go, there's a very clean water hole up here that we're going to go and have a look at. And just see if there isn't any action there. I'm pretty sure there is a leopard in and around here somewhere. Genevieve, New York. Nice question. Quite a sophisticated question to which I shall attempt to give an answer. You want to know the high nitrogen content of the dung that is in and around this place from all the buffalo and all the antelope and the elephants has any negative effect on the grasses. Genevieve, quite the opposite. The dung and its fertilizing effect is absolutely crucial to the soil of this area. Without it, the nutrient content of the soil would be probably exponentially lower than it is now. It's an absolutely crucial part of the ecology, so much so that because the herds of buffalo aren't as big as they used to be in an area like this, there's talk of bringing on herds of cattle briefly. So we'd drive on a herd of say 1,000 cattle, let them eat in an area like quarantine clearings for example for 3 days, and then take them off again. And that has the effect of breaking up the soil, fertilizing it, and allowing the seeds some time to sort of get in and grow. Nice question, that. Dung is a massively important resource for insects, for all sorts. Now it would be very pleasant to see a leopard gently walking across this little clearing. But we can all dream. Not so, Genre. So nothing around here at the moment. So it's turning into a rather glorious afternoon. I'm going to do an about turn and do another turn about this place. I'm telling you there's a leopard in here somewhere. Whether I can find her or not is another matter. one of the reasons I'm so interested in finding if there is a leopard here is that I have yet to meet Kurula. And for those of you who don't know, she's the queen of Djuma, one of the stars of the WildEarth show, an aging female who's raised many successful litters and given hours of entertainment and joy to thousands of people around the world. So we're going to go across to Brent now. He has gone terra incognito to the west. He's at Arathusa waterhole, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we are at the Arathusa Dam. Trying to see what's around with this windy weather. Seems to have driven the hippopotamus into the water. No one sort of basking on the beach. And there's a fork-tailed drongo who's fluttering about, having a drink every now and then, coming around right next to us. Where'd he go? Just ducked below us. Let's try and move back an inch. Oh. Actually, as I said, they're not actually drinking. What that drongo is doing is hawking for aquatic flying insects, scaring them. There's actually about 3 or 4 drongos doing it. And obviously, with the water, there's going to be a few more insects around, even during this dry season. So, little midges and mayflies and things that might hatch. And the drongos are taking advantage as they hatch. There's at least 4 or 5 drongos, all feeding off whatever small insect is hatching at the moment. They're too small for me to see what they are from here. I'm going to move on a little bit. There's some maintenance going on at Arathusa Lodge. So the lodges are quite good about that, as they'll try to do all their maintenance while the guests are out on game drive, so you don't have to listen to the clatter of power tools and men at work. So on a more interesting note, we found a reasonably fresh male leopard track that went down into this drainage line below the lodge. I'm just going to have a quick squiz around and see if we can find anything in that area. Interesting enough, the first place and the first time I saw Shadow and Sindile was almost directly below the dam wall a couple of months ago. Hi, Lenny from Holland. Lenny said today he saw a hippo, a hippo killing a kudu on a video that happened right here in front of Arathusa Safari Lodge. And they're said to be hippos. Probably one of these hippos was the culprit. And Lenny said, wonders what would happen to the carcass because hippos don't eat meat. Well, Lenny, there actually have been quite a few recorded cases of hippos eating meat. They don't normally, but they will eat carcasses sometimes if they're in the water. But what would probably have happened to the carcass here is it could have been a crocodile, or I think the different fish species, specifically the catfish, would have feasted upon that carcass. We're not going to hang around here too long. There is an African jacana off to the left. Often called lily trotters because of those incredibly specially designed feet of theirs that are designed for walking on aquatic vegetation. Now, for the serious birders, on the left of the jacana, running along the edge of the water, Andrew. Now there's one for the serious birders, a proper LBJ. So have a good close look at him and what his leg color is. Look for the stripe above the eye, and you see he had little white outer tail feathers when he flew and a very dark streaky breast. He's still there, Andrew? To the left. There he comes. So this is not an easy bird to identify. So remember I said you got to look at the color of the legs. When he hops and flies, you see he's got white outer tail feathers, got a very distinct white eye stripe and quite a streaky breast. Now this is a serious birder challenge. Off he goes, land a little bit further away. Who can tell me what bird that was? Now that is not a bird challenge for the amateur. It is definitely what we would call an LBJ in birding terms, and what that means is a little brown job. Quite difficult to identify, so let's see who can get that right, and send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Well done to RC, Craig and Crystal, who got the last bird quiz correct. Oh, there's a little flock of birds in front of us, and that was a common scimitar. So we've got a nice little flock of smaller birds in front of us. One of the more common bird species, or bird families in the world at least. And I've got little grey-headed sparrows running around, all feeding there. There's a couple of doves in between. Here we go. They're feeding on little grass seeds. Grey-headed sparrow. So, I wonder who's going to be able to figure out which bird was that particularly difficult challenge we set you there. And you can hear, we got a red-billed hornbill, sorry, excuse me, foraging around next to us. And for our longer time birders, I'm hoping that we may have added a new bird species. Oh, and it was a starling that just disappeared with that very difficult bird that was running around the water's edge. So let's see which one you guys think it is. I have my suspicions. And we're going to watch as this little flock of sparrows, as we get a bit closer. I'm going to let Andrew zoom a little bit, and they're going to take off as we inch a bit closer. You'll see, there we go, quite a few of them. Complaining at me, the grey-headed sparrows, as they loop back down to come feed next to us here. Hi, Angela from Boston. Angela would like to know why the Arethusa waterhole looks so much more full than the Djuma waterhole. She says the Djuma waterhole looks so sad compared to the Arethusa waterhole, and why is this? Are they closer to a main water source? Not at all, Angela. It's a bigger dam wall. So it's a much higher dam, much longer dam, and it catches more water. Is the only answer to that. Djuma Dam is not a particularly large dam. Also, the Arethusa Dam has multiple little drainage lines that flow into it. Where the Arethusa Dam has multiple drainage lines that flow into it, and the Djuma Dam only has one. So it's got a bigger catchment, and it's a much bigger dam with a much bigger wall. And that is why it's got more water and will hold water longer. Just going to get through this little spot here for, I should have called it the nearly impossible bird, but I'm quite sure maybe some of you might have got it. So unfortunately the gremlins are in my radio here, and I'm going to have to move to be able to hear what the answers were. Let me get onto some higher ground. So I wonder when I get to a spot where we can hear you, that I will let you know as soon as I get to a spot where we can hear you, and then we shall see, because it is a very difficult bird. Okay, here we go. So let's see. Well, it doesn't look like anyone has got it yet. We've had a rattling testicular, we've had an African pipit closer and on the right track, but it's still not completely correct. But African pipit is on the right track. Not an African marsh warbler either, I'm afraid. I would stick to the pipits. The pipits, it is part of the pipit family, but not the African pipit. It's not a grass-fold pipit either. I'm going to let you go for a little bit longer before I let you know which pipit it is. I'm hoping those of you who keep track of the LiveSafari bird list, I would love for you to let me know when I do give you the answer whether this pipit has been seen on the live drives before. I actually set myself a personal little challenge after we saw that long-billed crombec on Juma, which was a first for the LiveSafari drives, and I had to try at least find at least another 5 new species for the LiveSafari drives, and so far I haven't been able to yet, so I'm hoping that this might be the little cherry on the top. And the wind's died down, has it? The wind has died down quite a bit since we started out. So well done to Joanne from Arizona. It is a striped pipit. There we go. Remember I said what you must look for carefully. That very distinct white eyeline, the nice barring on the chest, the pink legs, and the white outer tail feathers. So a striped pipit. So there we go. Nice. Definitely the first time I've seen a striped pipit since I've been on the live drives. So really great. But in the meantime, we're going to cross to James, who's got another of our feathered friends, and we'll be back with you a little later.
Hello everybody. I'm looking askance at a lilac-breasted roller that was sitting just 3 feet from the vehicle and is now about, just gone down to fetch something like I always say they do, and I'm hoping he's going to go back to the same place. There he is, picking little grasshoppers and arthropods out of the grass, and hopefully he will leave a feather behind for me. In fact, I'm going to check if he hasn't. Now, very different from what you'd expect. So they don't fly around and catch insects in the air. As you can see there, they feed on the ground and then go back up and advertise themselves on a very obvious perch. And he'll be trying to find little grasshoppers and things. He's now only about 4 feet from the back of the vehicle. So very confiding, very happy to be around us. And let's just see where he flies. When he does fly, watch out for the amazing flash of blue. You're probably not. There we go. It's exactly where he was the first time. And in the background, a whole lot of beefaloes. I'm just going to get out and see if I can't find a feather there. Stand by. The bird might fly, for which I will be greatly sorry. He was feeding here, wasn't he, Jean-Bray? No, no feathers, I'm afraid. What a pity. No coffee for me from Hawaii. Right, we're going to carry on. We've looked around here extensively now for those tracks, any sign of the leopards, and there just isn't anything. So I think we're going to press on and see what else we can see. Our next port of call is going to be Treehouse Waterhole, and we'll just see what's come down to there. South of the reserve, there's a herd of 50 elephants. North of the reserve, there's a big pride of lions, and that's unfortunately just the way it goes in an open system like this. It's wonderful because we never know what we're going to find. It's wonderful because anything can come on and go off, and it's as close to an open system as we can get, and as close to as close to a natural system as we can get. But it does mean that sometimes everybody else has the action we don't, and then other days it's a bit different. You can just see the light starting to change, turning marvelous golden winter. I like to call this color golden winter. Summer doesn't tend to go quite as gold as this. So we're going to go up onto the clearings just to the west of us, see if there isn't anything grazing out there, and then head down towards a waterhole. The general sort of rule is that animals, we tend to think that animals like to drink in the evening like we do, but actually they'll probably drink more when it's cold, when it's hot. Hello, Ashley from Derby in the United Kingdom. Another lovely question. Is there any clearing of the bush here? So will we chop out trees for various reasons, maybe because they're invasive or maybe because they weren't here? The answer is yes, in many places we do that. And it's quite controversial. Some people will use bulldozers to clear trees away from areas to make them more open. So they're good for game viewing, and so they're good for savanna species like wildebeest, and the impala quite like them too. And some people say, no, you can't do that, you've got to leave everything natural, and leave everything to be, let nature take its course. The latter argument, of course, presupposes that it's possible to have a so-called natural system. And the answer is that, of course, we can't, because we've been in the area now for close on 200 years as human beings, and so we've irrevocably changed it. We've put water holes everywhere, we've shot out various animals, we've decided what an optimum number of elephants is. So I suspect, naturally, if there is such a thing, this area that we're in now would be a lot more open. Probably a bit like the land you can see right in front of you here. So this has been cleared. This area to our right has been cleared. The sort of scraggly bushes have been pulled out. And this is a more sort of parkland affair that tends to look quite attractive to the human eye. And there's quite interesting psychology behind why that is. But we don't really know what a truly natural system would look like. And I suspect it would change quite a lot over time, but we just don't know. And so I think that there were previously a lot more elephants than there are now in the area. They would have changed the vegetation shape substantially. I suspect there were a lot more buffalo in the area at one stage, and they also would have changed the vegetation scape. They would have probably resulted in between the two of them, created a lot more in the way of savanna grassland versus this sort of Cambritum woodland that tends to dominate in this area. Lovely question. Invasive species, as in aliens from not from here, no, we don't have that many in and around the place, but there definitely are a few, especially along the rivers. They come in from, when the rivers flow, they come in, deposit their seeds and that sort of thing. Hello, Kelly. Another nice question. How much has tourism contributed to conservation in the park? The answer is a huge amount and an increasing amount. So the government has reduced spending on a place like the Kruger National Park because it's got huge amounts of socio-economic issues that it has to deal with. And so the Kruger Park has had to, conservation really has had to start paying for itself. And tourism is by far the best way to do that. Yeah, you can do it with trophy hunting if you want a quick buck here and there, but photographic tourism is the long-term, most sustainable way, and not only because it generates revenue, but most crucially because it generates jobs for the 9 million people that live on the borders of the park who are living in abject poverty. And without those tourism jobs, I tell you what, this park wouldn't exist. And those people out there would struggle even more than they do now. So every tourism dollar that we can get makes a huge difference. Apparently everybody, or the research that I've done in the area shows that more than every person employed in tourism in the Kruger Park and in the private reserves outside supports between 6 and 8 people on their salary. So at one lodge, the one lodge I used to work at called Londolozi, there are about 200 local staff there. Multiply that by 8, and that one lodge, which has 60 beds, so 60 guests, are supporting more than 1,600 people just by coming to visit and look at the wonderful animals. So tourism plays a massive role in this country, not only for conservation, but for socio-economics. That beastly noise is the sound of a pump pumping water towards where we live, which is good because yesterday morning we woke up with nothing. Pamela, just to wrap up our discussion on the coffee, for those of you who don't know, I've been challenged by 2 viewers in Hawaii who've said that they will send me some, I think it's called Kuma coffee from Hawaii, if I can send them 2 lilac-breasted roller feathers. So I'm in desperately trying to find some. And then Pamela asks, and we had a similar question the other day, have I ever eaten civet coffee? Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a fancy coffee, I think made in Asia, from the dung of civets that have eaten a certain kind of plant, and it's supposed to taste delicious. I have smelt many civet trees here, and a civet tree is the midden that a civet makes, and they are really appalling smelling. And the thought of grinding some of the contents of a civet tree up in and putting it in my plunger and then sipping it before I join you for the morning game drive is frankly horrific. So I'd love to hear from anybody who's actually had civet dung coffee. Apparently extremely expensive, and I suspect possibly not worth the cost, but I might be wrong. And then some others have kindly suggested that I go and look under the JumaCam waterhole, or the Juma waterhole camera, and see if there aren't any lilac-breasted roller feathers, because that seems to be where 1 or 2 of them hang out a lot. I'm definitely going to do that. And a gentle coughing sound you can hear is not in fact a wildebeest alarm calling, it is Jean-Dre, who's picking up a bit of dust in his lungs, and he's very politely not hacking out a cough on camera. Thanks, Jean-Dre. Hello, Dennis in Lakeville. Lovely question about language, basically. For those of you who don't know, a monkey is able to make at least 3 different kinds of alarm calls. One for sort of aerial predators, one for snakes, and one for things like leopards. I think Dennis, I think you'll find that there probably are even more than 3. And you want to know if I have managed to develop the ear to distinguish between them. Dennis, I haven't, and I've really tried. I can't tell the difference between the two. Maybe, perhaps, if I listen to recordings knowing exactly what they were shouting at, I might be able to, but at the moment I can't. There's some zebra down at the waterhole here. Dennis, the other interesting thing, there's a friend of mine who's a brilliant tracker, and the guy who taught him is a chap called Renaya Mhlongo. And Renaya Mhlongo is arguably the finest tracker that South Africa ever produced. And he lives in Dixie, just outside here. And we're just going to stop here and have a look at the beautiful golden light on the impala who are having a drink and the zebra walking away. But Dennis, Renaya Mhlongo is able to tell the difference between drongo alarm calls. So he can tell whether a drongo is alarm calling at a leopard or something else. And astonishingly, no matter how much time he spent with my friend Alex, who he's taught, Alex still can't distinguish it. And that's because Renay's ear is just so amazingly tuned in to what's going on in the bush. Beautiful colors on those zebra. This really is the most golden light. There's that noise you can hear is crested francolins. They seem to be in a fairly constant state of panic, the crested francolin. Huge noise all the time. First birds to get you out of bed. The earliest bird you'll hear in the morning is the grey-headed sparrow with a very gentle sort of chirrup, 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 chirrup. And while you're huddling in your bed under the warm covers, you know what's coming. Because just as you're about to close your eyes again to the gentle sounds of the sparrow, you get... And that is the crested francolin setting you off your secondary alarm, and then it's time to get up and go on game drive, hopefully without some civet dung coffee. Beautifully quiet now. Just the odd ripple in the water there from a fish that jumped out. We're going to move slowly on down round the dam here, and then probably towards one more waterhole before giving up on the waterholes, and just enjoying the stunning sort of late afternoon winter atmosphere. It's ginger and it's gold and it's lovely. Where we found the Nkahuma Pride the other day after their contretemps with the Styx Pride south of us. And for those who don't know, the Nkahuma Pride, for our new viewers, is the pride of lions that we see most often here. 5 adult females, 2 sub-adult females, and 1 extremely lazy sub-adult male. Not that all lions aren't lazy, mind. And here are the whole lot of zebra having their post-drink graze. And it's not unusual to find them in the company of impala although one zebra is chasing an impala at the moment, or just sort of giving him a rough time. They'll hang around together because they really do enjoy the safety offered by the extra numbers. Beautiful. A zebra, if you don't know, is they've been recorded killing wildebeest calves, and they really can be quite nasty. So you'll find the impala will be very wary of them, although they do help each other with sight and hearing, of course. Right. On we go. Chandra, can you just try and get a shot of the sort of almost the way the grass has disappeared through here, maybe just of the ground. So everyone, you can see there, that is an indication, that ground that you can see is an indication of how dry the year has been. So this should, at this time of the year, be a lot fuller of grass than it is. And that's just a simple function of the fact that we've had a very small rainy season, or a very below average rainy season. And that species that you're looking at there is called a three-awn grass, and it's the only thing that tends to thrive in adverse conditions, and not very good for grazing at all, and it grows very nicely on areas that are a bit overgrazed, and they would have been overgrazed because it's close to the water and there wouldn't have been much rain on it. So you can see that by the end of the dry season, things are going to be a little bit rough for the herbivores and the grazers. Anyway, I'm sure it won't trouble us too much. And it certainly won't trouble the predators much. Hello, Ellen in New York. You are asking about age in leopards, and you've said that is 11, because Karula is now 11 years old, or she was 11 in March. Is that old for a leopard? It's not particularly old for a leopard, no. I mean, the oldest recorded leopard actually in history is 17. And she lived just down the road at a place called Londolozi, and I had the privilege of spending quite a lot of time with her when I worked there. But look, 11 is not ancient, but it's getting there. And in the absence of pressure, she'll go on for probably quite a lot longer. But if you look at her face, I've seen pictures, I've never met her, so the pictures I've seen of her, she's starting to go a bit pale, which is normal. And I would say that in 3 years' time, she'll be struggling to maintain a territory unless a lot of her daughters have set up territories nearby, in which case there won't be that much pressure. So she's getting on a bit. She's not ancient at all, but she's pushing into the twilight, I would say. If she gets to 17, I would be amazed. That would be pretty old. Captivity, they can get up to about 20 years, but 11's done pretty well. I would give her another 3 years or so, but she might defy all odds. And she does have a very large territory, which means that she can make it smaller, dependent on pressure from daughters and other leopards coming into the area. Lots of hyena tracks all over the road. We did check that hyena den this morning, and they're going to spend less and less time in the dens because they're getting old enough to now move with the rest of the clan, or certainly the eldest ones. We're going to head across to Brent now while we check the other waterhole. He's been following some leopard tracks, and we'll cross over to him and see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. Unfortunately, those leopard tracks we went to look for went through into a drainage line that leads up to the private rooms at Arathusa, and even if we were able to find them, you can't take a vehicle there. So we decided to leave that area, and I'm busy heading east mostly at the moment, down towards where we heard those kudu alarm calling early on the sunrise safari. So hopefully whatever caused those kudu to alarm calls decided to come out and leave some tracks that we can follow, but that kudu to alarm calls decided to come out and leave some tracks that we can follow, but that wonderful late afternoon light starting to come through now, and hopefully it looks like the gremlins have been beaten. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the other gremlin I mentioned earlier, the tokolosh. And we're going to have a chat about the tokolosh when I find a suitable place where tokolosh would reside. Julia would like to know whether I've ever seen red river hogs in my travels. Julia, I've been very fortunate that I have. I've seen actually a group of about 250 together on a beach in Central Africa, and very interesting behavior they were actually doing at that time is that it was the dry season in the rainforest, so there's not that many fruits around, and they were feeding on ghost crabs. So they're on the beach digging up crabs. This huge group of hogs moving down the beach. One of the more incredible sightings I've ever had in my life. And Pamela would like to know whether I've ever seen stray dogs and cats running around the Sabi Sand. I have, specifically further down to the south, where we were much closer to a village, and occasionally stray dogs would come through. Unfortunately, when that happens, when stray dogs or cats do come into a reserve like this, reserve management has to destroy them immediately. And the reason for this is those animals hold a lot of diseases that wild animals would not be able to defend themselves against, particularly things like rabies and canine distemper. And those affect very sensitive populations like wild dogs, which are endangered species. So you cannot take a chance. If there is a stray dog or cat seen in these reserves, they're generally destroyed immediately. And the other problem with domestic cats is they are very, very bad for African wildcats. because what happens is they interbreed with the wildcats and they destroy that the wildcat gene. So unfortunately, when they are found in the reserve, they are destroyed. So I'm just going to be on the Game Drive radio for a sec. Just check if there's been any updates in the north while I've been on Arethusa. Stations crossing back from the west. May I have an update for Vuyatela, please? Sounds like it's been just as quiet out here as it was over at Arethusa. Hopefully we can change that. Standing by. Sorry, Craig, you broke up there. Confirm and Lula Miti at Garida. Copy, thanks very much. So, very, very quiet. Very little. Hi, Peggy. Welcome on the Sunset Safari, Peggy. Really great to have you on the back of the vehicle. Peggy would like to know if there's been any updates on the pregnant wild dog female we saw a while ago and whether they've denned. The one pack Peggy has denned in the Sabi Sands to the south of us, and that's the half-tailed pack. And I got a report this morning that that smaller pack of 5 that we saw with James, I think it was, have been seen in the Central Manuleti Game Reserve, so north of here. So no idea whether they've denned or not yet, but I will let you guys know as soon as I do. Station on Leadwood Road, come on. Hi, Elizabeth from the north of Scotland. Elizabeth would like to know how many litters of cubs will a lion have in its lifetime? Well, Elizabeth, lioness will generally have their first set of cubs at about 4 years old, and they'll continue to breed through till about 12, 13, sometimes even a little bit later than that. And what happens is, let's just say this is a perfect scenario. She would have 4 years or less, give or take. Every 2 years she would have a litter, and obviously this is perfect if the litters aren't killed by lions and whatnot, which is very unusual. But let's say the maximum she could possibly have in her lifetime. So at 6 she would have her second litter, at 8 third, 10 fourth, and then 12 the fifth. So probably a maximum of 5 or 6 litters in her lifetime. Obviously that generally they can have 4 litters, but often those litters are killed and they'll come back into breed.
You can't get that whole tree in with the sun.
Okay, like this.
What's wrong with you?
That's good. That's good. A little forward, sorry, stop it forward.
Hello everybody, we're back again. The gremlins continue to trouble us. You were with Brent, you're now with me. There's a rather magnificent sunset going on. Nothing in the way of animals, of course, but we're going to turn towards the sun so you can have a look at it. It's rather beautiful. And the cloudier or smokier the sky is, the more magnificent the sunset seems to be. So we're heading back towards Buffels Hook Dam on the off chance that something's come down to drink there. I would like to know, please, are the children of Dayton Children's Hospital in Ohio watching today? Because we're going to go up towards the dam, and we'll quickly, if Gracie's watching, we'll quickly decide on the name of the hippo. It's got substantially cooler since I last saw you, which wasn't very long ago. And it's always amazed me, and it always used to amaze my guests, how compared with the sort of higher latitudes, as soon as the sun goes down here, it's like a light going off, and it gets dark extremely quickly. So watch that happen. Sun will go down at about, let's say, probably 15, 20 minutes, and after that it'll get dark very fast. 30 minutes later it'll be pitch black. A lovely picture from here, Jean-Bray. This will get your artistic blood boiling. Fear not, I will turn you towards the sun shortly. From this very special little viewpoint. Whew. How's that? Just a lovely shot of the sun there. Just going to have a quick listen. My favorite time of the day to stop and listen. I'll tell you what I can hear. Again, it's very subtle sounds this time of the year. Just the odd rattlings testicular. Rustle of the wind. Blue waxbill or two. And every so often you just hear the little sort of clarinet-like call of a drongo dotted about the place. They like to call it this time of the night. And while it's cliched to possibly go on about the sunset, I have to tell you that every night I like to do this, and it just kind of recharges the batteries, and it really does feed the soul. Right, we're going to continue slowly towards Buffels Hook. Right, a question from Kev in South Wales, in the valleys. Kev, you want to know about birds, and you want to know about the endemic species that we get here. You say out of the nearly 1,000 species that we get in South Africa, how many are endemic to the Kruger? I don't know what the exact number of endemics is, I'm afraid. I think it sits probably between 20 and 30, but there are about, the total bird list for the Kruger National Park sits at about 520 birds. That's including all of the vagrants and that sort of thing. And I think probably about 20 of those are endemic to here, but I couldn't tell you exactly. Lots more endemics, obviously, the further towards the Western Cape you go and into the more specialized desert habitats. But the habitat that we're in now stretches pretty much all the way north into Zimbabwe and Zambia, and so we share a huge number of species with them. Nice question. I will have to get back to you though on the total number of endemics in the Kruger. I don't think that many. All around I can hear the ubiquitous call of the fork-tailed drongo. They love to call this time of the night or day. And in Texas, your cat loves to leap around in catnip, and you want to know if the big cats have anything like that they like to roll around in. And I've only ever seen leopards rolling around in buffalo dung, and possibly the odd elephant dung. I can't think of anything that drives them quite as wild as catnip, other than fresh meat. So, no, not that I know of, Anne. Very good question. Right, well, we're just coming up on Biffle's Hook waterhole. In Boston, an interesting question. You want to know, is there, with all the prides of lions that there are in the Kruger Park, is there one that is particularly more vicious than the others, and you know, that will just kill anything and, you know, accept other prides? Angela, no, not really, but that said, for example, when there's that documentary that's just come out called, I think it's Brothers of Blood, about a coalition of male lions called the Mapocho, which are 5 young males who, when I initially saw them, and they don't mention this in the documentary, there was a much older male with them, and he seemed to fall by the wayside eventually. But they seem to be far more vicious than anything I'd ever heard of. Mainly because they'd go and if they came across a female, they'd kill her too, which is very abnormal behavior. So in terms of male coalitions, they tend to be what you might term more vicious, although, you know, that's just their way, that's just how they are. So they're not necessarily more vicious. But no, there are no prides that are sort of abnormally vicious, that will get up and specifically kill things that they don't want to eat. Remember, everything out here is a very fine energy balance, and so for an animal like a lion to expend energy killing something, there must be a very good reason, normally, and that reason will normally mean they want to eat something or they are going to defend territory. So in terms of viciousness, no, I'd say it's pretty standard level of viciousness amongst most of the lions. Might have to stop for another sunset shot. Oh, it's just so beautiful. Andre, if you see something you'd like to stop at, just see that blazing ball of red going down now. Yeah. Yep. Around the corner. Hello, Dodie and Beverly in Kentucky. Well, Dodie's not in Kentucky, Beverly's in Kentucky. Dodie, you want to know, does this sort of live drive thing encourage tourists to come out here? Look at that. Well, Dodie, I'd have to say that if that picture there didn't inspire somebody to come out and visit Africa, they'd have to be pretty hard-hearted. Dodie, absolutely. There are definitely people, I've met people just in my short time here. Beverly, I've been doing this for only 4 weeks. You've been watching for 2 weeks, so you've only been watching me doing these drives for 2 weeks. And no, we do work 7 days a week. That is absolutely correct. And normally the cycle is sort of 6 weeks on and then 2 weeks off. So Dodie, yeah. It's one of the huge goals of WildEarth is to drive tourism to conservation hotspots like this. So absolutely, one of our major objectives is to get people out here and experiencing the wonder that I get to do every day. So 7 days a week, Beverly, is not that much of a trial when you get to look at that sort of thing every single day. We're just going to wait for the last little larval coal to dip below the horizon there. Still a little piece. There it goes. Isn't that amazing? It always astounds me at how fast it disappears. Just stunning. Never get sick of that. Tracks of an elephant bull on the road, and a huge little herd of beefaloes lurking here in the roundleaf teak forest. Just get a little bit of a view for you. How's that, Jean-Bray? Is that right? You can just hear the call of the fork-tailed drongo. I've seen these buffalo here a few times. They seem to like this area. Probably good grasses. And some nice shelter provided by the roundleaf teaks, which are the sort of scraggly bushes that they're huddling in between. The old boy chewing his cud. Watch, he's going to bring up another piece of bolus now. There we go. Delicious. Ugh. So glad I'm not a ruminant. So one of the things you learn to look for when you're walking out here, of course, is that color. That black color, which indicates a buffalo. And the only thing out here that really has that much of a jet black color. And also, what you don't notice here, because it's got a bit later, is that there are no oxpeckers calling. So in the middle of the day, normally around a herd like this, you'll get psh, 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 psh from the oxpeckers. And there's none of that now because they've all left and gone to roost somewhere in a tree hole. And when you're walking, it's a crucial sound to listen to is the oxpeckers. They've got an excellent view of where the sun just went down. I'll just pop along to the waterhole before it gets dark. Skidoo. Skidoo, if that is indeed your name, I don't believe your parents gave that to you, but it is quite an interesting moniker. You want to know why it looks like the sun goes down like a ton of bricks here compared with where you are, perhaps in the northern hemisphere. It's not a function of the northern hemisphere, it's a function of your latitude and the height of your latitude. So I'm not sure where you are, but let's take, for example, London. London is far further north than we are south. I'm not sure exactly what the latitudes are, but we're above the Tropic of Cancer, and there really are some nice elephant tracks. Just keep an eye out. And so we are much closer to the equator than you are. So the closer you are to the equator, the faster the sun will go down, basically. And the further away from the equator you are, obviously the longer it's going to take for the sun to go down, and the longer your twilight will be, and the bigger the difference between your winter solstice day length and your summer solstice day length will be. Thanks, Skidoo. Definitely been an elephant herd walking through here.
Welcome back, everyone. We've made our way back to the Gari Dam, where the Juma Dam cam is, and you see we've got that pair of saddle-billed storks we saw catch that tilapia the other day, both fishing in the receding waters of the dam. But the main reason I came to Gari Dam was to chat about tokoloshes. So tokolosh is a very, very strong part of a lot of traditional folklore. And if I zoom into those reeds at the back of the dam towards in front of the lodge there, so you'll see there's some reeds in there, and obviously during the summer months, so hang on a second, there we go, a little bit further up, Andrew, and then zoom there. You can see those thick reeds there, and we've got water here. This would be the ideal place for a tokolosh to reside. The reason for that being it's a water sprite, and there's quite a lot of different varying legends of tokoloshes depending on the culture, and it varies a lot through southern Africa, but the tokolosh is in all the southern African cultures. And quite interesting, the tokolosh is in a lot of areas believed to be controlled by a single evil master, but the tokolosh has one flaw from an evil creature: it really likes children, and it's also said that the tokolosh is invisible to adults and is only visible to children. And a lot of that was a lot of thought was invisible playmates, that the children's invisible friends were the tokolosh, because adults were unable to see them, and they liked children and thought children were nice and not evil, so they never harmed children. So a tokolosh's misdeeds and whatnot were always perpetrated against an adult and never against a child. And if you are an adult and you happen to see a tokolosh, that would be very, very bad luck. And I'm trying to think how to tactfully refer to one of the tokolosh's greatest weapons, so to speak. But he's said to be very, very well endowed. In fact, said to wrap it around his waist twice and hang it over his shoulder. And it's said that that was his main thing, and that's why the tokolosh was very scary to a lot of women. But he was sent to commit murder by strangulation, and that's normally was the tokolosh's MO. But as I said, the tokoloshes, even if they were sent to kill a child, they couldn't bring themselves to do it. They found children so fun and wonderful and lovely that they would even disobey their masters. And it was also said that tokolosh were passed down from generation to generation. So if you had a pet tokolosh and you wanted him to be naughty things, you could then pass it on to your son or your daughter, depending whether you're male or female. But we've had a question from Pamela, which sort of delves into the realm of supernatural, which we were speaking about now. And the tokolosh is definitely on the supernatural side. I spent many years as a small child in rivers and drainage lines in Africa, and I never got to see a tokolosh. But Pamela would like to know, are there any ghosts or famous ghost stories from this particular area? None that I know of offhand, Pamela, but in terms of ghosts or spirits, culturally, the ancestors play a very, very big part in the traditional culture in the area. And Sangoma, who is a witch doctor, which is not really the correct term, it's a type of traditional doctor that deals with the supernatural and the ancestors. So if you were having problems in your life, you could go consult one, you would pay them X amount, and they would roll the bones. So they would have a little, and not only bones, but very strange little things picked up in the bush, a stone, a shiny stone, even a bottle top sometimes, and roll the bones and throw them out into a grass mat and then read what the future is. So I think very much like what we would say with fortune tellers, I think a lot of the times they're very good judges of character and readers of people, and they read off emotions and that rather than actually having the ability to see into the supernatural. But who knows? There's a lot of stuff we still don't know out there. But so you would communicate with the ancestors, and generally if things were going bad in your life, the ancestors would be upset with you. You'd done something wrong, so you would have to consult with a spiritual doctor. And how much of, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever seen a ghost. Also, from the Sangoma point of view, the hyenas are often said to be the Sangoma's pets, and also owls is another one. And an owl traditionally is quite a scary animal. If it lands above your house, it's said a relative of yours is going to die. And also, like the tokolosh, hyenas were used by the evil witch doctors to do misdeeds, to commit murders. So very interesting stuff. And I think over the next while, James and I will definitely be delving a little bit more into traditional history and culture, and maybe focusing not so much on the serious and the evil, but doing some of the very fun, sort of tribal folklores, more specifically to deal with animals. But we have a question from Pamela in Ohio, who would like to, Alice in Ohio, who would like to know if we have any fast food restaurants in Africa. Well, Alice, we do, and we've got quite a few different types. When I was still quite a youngster, McDonald's arrived, and I think Burger King arrived in Johannesburg not so long ago. So there are, and KFC's been here forever. So in the major cities and whatnot, and even the smaller towns, there are fast food restaurants. But I'm not going to focus so much on those because I'm sure you guys see a lot more of them than I do. I'm going to focus on the more traditional African fast food restaurant that you find throughout Africa. And this will generally be in a marketplace where your buses... Sorry, just 1 second. Nope, false alarm. Where your buses and taxis and that would stop to offload passengers. And on the edge of the market there would be a thing. It's called different things all over Africa, but it basically translates to the same thing. In Tanzania and Kenya it's called nyama choma, and in South Africa it's called shisa nyama. And basically both of those mean burnt meat. So at this you would have a fire going and a grill with lots of little different pieces of goat and cow and chicken all on the grill, and you buy it, and that's your sort of fast food while you're traveling as a rural person in Africa. You're also able to get sort of maize meal and beans, so kidney beans that have been cooked for hours and hours, and always chilies. And most of these things you will find chilies. And obviously chilies, lots of reasons. It's quite good warding off disease if you eat them. But I think the most potent chili I've ever had in my life was in southern Tanzania, and they were called pilipili mbuzi, which basically means chili of the goat, and you're supposed to eat it with goat. But I thought I could handle hot food, and I took a bite of this chili, and I regretted it for about 2 days. It was, my mouth literally blistered. It was so hot. But so there's that type of fast food, and I actually really enjoy that food. Or as a friend of mine calls it, street meat. A friend from America who came out to visit, he's like, "Oh my God, you guys eat street meat." But generally, once you've cooked everything, you get rid of all the germs and whatnot that could possibly be there. And going along with these sort of nyama choma restaurants or shisa nyama restaurants, if you go even more rural, they set up sometimes only once or twice a week or even a month in very rural areas where there's not a lot of livestock. And it'll be under the butcher tree. And literally the butcheries in these rural village is a tree. Where once you've killed the cow, you're able to string it up, and then you literally walk up and buy, that cow's been dead a minute, and you can buy a piece of meat that's been chucked off. And then delicacies like liver and kidneys and stuff are cut, and heart taken straight out, chopped into bits, and waxed straight on a fire. And you can buy that while you're waiting for the butcher who is chopping up a piece of meat for you with a machete. So there is fast food, but quite different. And then there's obviously always the conventional fast food as well. Hi, Rudy and Josh. Rudy and Josh would like to know whether I ever fish in these water holes and what type of fish are there other than catfish. Well, Rudy, there's tilapia, and there'll be a few minnow species. I'm not sure exactly on the minnow species. The tilapia species in here, you'll have tilapia rindali, which is a red-chested tilapia. And the one we saw the saddleballs eating the other day was a Mozambique tilapia. Tilapia mozambiquense, believe it or not. Nice, easy one. But we don't really fish, not the best fishing in these water holes. When I was further south, I used to fish quite often in the Sand River on my off days, and we caught little tigerfish and low-felt large-scale yellowfish and low-felt largemouth, which is a type of, it's sort of related to the tilapia species, but it's a saranchromis, which means it's a predatory bream, and it's got a big mouth like a bass in America, and so it's a very predatory little fish. I used to use ultralight tackle. I used to use my 2/8 1-ounce fly rod, because the fish didn't get particularly big in the river, so it was more fun to catch them on light tackle. But we're going to leave you with one last view of our feathered friends, the saddle-billed stork. And while we do that, we're going to pass you over to Commander Bond, who is with a different feathered friend. And I'm sure that feathered friend is not standing knee-deep in the mud, and is probably nice and high and dry. So off to James, and we will see you a little later in the drive.
Welcome back to Jiggy, everybody. I believe you've been talking about the Togoloshi with Brent and various other what sound like fairly fascinating things. You're looking at there a magnificent Battalier eagle, otherwise known as the short-tailed eagle, and he was sitting until very recently in the company of a tawny eagle. Now those two birds are known to be carrion eaters, much like vultures, except they get to the carcasses before the vultures do, because they're smaller, they're more nimble. The Battalier especially is able to fly a lot lower down than the vultures. The tawny was on a tree just behind us, beautifully framed in the gold, but alas, he flew off. I'm not really sure why he flew off. I was pretty sure he was going to stay still. They're often an indicator that there might be a kill around, so I can't smell anything, nor can I hear the crunching of bones, and we'll drive through the area quite slowly, but I don't think there's a huge amount going on. I think it's fairly coincidental. Just a really nice shot of them sitting silhouetted against the early evening sky. The Battalier is one of our sort of quintessential Kruger Park birds, only occur in protected areas, and they're pretty endangered. I think they're listed as vulnerable, if not listed as endangered. And for some reason only occur in protected areas. They don't occur anywhere where there's farmland. And that's probably got largely to do with the amount of chemicals there are in and around the soil, and I think they get trapped. You know, if they kill anything, they just get trapped and butchered. Beautiful birds. iconic Kruger Park site, the Battalier. And certainly one of my favorite birds. And they live up to 40 years, you know, so that bird's probably got a story or two to tell. All right, with that beautiful picture, we're going to head on. You may lose our signal here. I'm very sorry if you do. We are going through a bit of a dodgy area, but you'll pick us up the other side. Beautiful giraffe. Look at that. Sorry about the lack of signal there, but marvelous, marvelous sight of a giraffe silhouetted against the night sky. And that's a giraffe cow who I actually think I saw yesterday. She looks quite similar. Gendre's turning giraffe silhouettes into something of a speciality. Not quite as impressive when she doesn't lift her head, but look at that. Oh. Just try and listen to the sound of her legs moving. And as Brent was talking quite a lot about sort of cultural beliefs probably in this area, it sounds like that's what he was on about. Giraffes, and giraffes' tails specifically, highly sought after by traditional healers as fly swats. And you won't be able to see why now, but they've got long hair, just like a sort of horse's tail. Highly effective at swatting flies off themselves. Very important function that they have. All tails of animals out here. Beautiful. Alright, we'll just push on. Right, we'll stop here, and there she is. Sorry about that jerk, Gendre. Now she's just across the northern boundary, but of course we can look at her, which is rather nice. Difficult time of night for a giraffe, because they're very vulnerable when they can't see properly, and their sight is hugely important. Hello Dave, you want to know, you've heard there are 9 different kinds of patterns on giraffe, and is this true? Dave, what tends to happen is that giraffe have been divided into up to, I think, 16 subspecies at some stages, largely based on the patterning that they have. They're probably more than 9, Dave, but roughly 9 is a good estimate of fairly distinctive giraffe coloration. Ooh, that's nice. And again, feeding on the most thorny of thorns. It's getting pretty dark in here, out here. She's not being particularly good about putting her head against the sky. Oi! Never seen a giraffe eat such a low head position. That's not true. I've actually seen a giraffe graze, but that was in Ireland in an animal park. Beautiful. The only sounds you can hear are her feeding. And the drongos all around. And pretty soon, I've just seen the first bat of the evening. Pretty soon you'll be able to hear the odd nightjar, perhaps a barred owl or a white-faced owl going doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. And perhaps the first roar of a lion. But right now all is peace. Wonderful sound of the giraffe eating. Now, I'm pretty sure this is the same cow we saw yesterday. She was on her own. I've told you that they're quite social, but this one seems to be particularly antisocial. But I think we'll leave her to her food and we'll head on up the road into that incredibly coloured sky and see what we can find. Good idea to put some lights on. Get hold of my spotlight, which isn't plugged in. Stand by. That's not going to work. We'll just use the vehicle lights for now. And that's the sky I get to look at every night. It does feel a certain sense of privilege. Hello Ashley and Darby. You like to hear about the atmosphere, and that's what I've just tried to describe, and thank you for that. You're obviously a kindred spirit who enjoys the sense that the wilderness gives you. It's supposed to be about 23 degrees Celsius at the moment. I don't think it's quite that. I think it's dropped probably to around about a very comfortable 19, especially up here on the crests, but chillier down in the dips, and that's about 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, just to see what the smoke has done to that horizon. Totally moonless sky. No, it's not. There's the moon. I just spotted it. Didn't think it should be moonless. It's a half moon. I'm just going to stop once more to tell you something, mainly because it's an excuse to look at the sky and the mountains beyond. You can see the basalt cliffs there of the Drakensberg. But I'm stopping here mainly to explain something quickly. On the ridge crests where we're sitting now, and temperature is around about probably a fairly pleasant 19 degrees. Down in that dip in front of us when we go. We'll start to head downhill fairly soon. The temperature, I reckon, will drop about 4 or 5 degrees, and that's because of a phenomenon called katabatic flow. And katabatic flow is the flow of air once the sun sort of dips down, and the hot air tends to come up and rise up the slopes, and leaving a lot of cool, much chillier air down in the dips and the drainage lines. And in the mornings, that, like where Jeandre and I were driving around this morning in the dips, it was very cold, and that's where it will be coldest tomorrow morning when we go out on our drive. Stunning pictures those, thank you, Jeandre. And we're just going to go down now. You'll probably hear me start to shiver. So really pretty good temperatures for midwinter. You can feel the warm breeze coming up, and then about halfway down you feel the cold air start to blow in. It's not too bad. We're going to go quickly across the end. We just found a jackal, and we may see you later.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we are with a side-striped jackal. There's actually a pair out in the quarantine clearing. See how it's checking for termites, which play quite an important part in their diet. He comes past the terminalia. Where'd the second one disappear to? There we go. So, defecating will play a part in marking territory with, like most of your carnivores. Quite nice, we're seeing them regularly on quarantine at the moment. The last poor side-striped jackal I saw on quarantine got eaten by quarantine. Just go forward a bit, catch them around the other side. There's loop ahead. There's one, there's the other. Just see that, I can just hear. There it is. So there's a little bush baby who's just seen these side-striped jackal, and I could hear him alarm calling, this tiny little tip, tip, tip. Oh, he's on the... Can't catch him now. Oh, he's coming to us. He jumped nearly right to us. Where'd he go now? There he is. See him, Andrew? Just hiding behind the branch there. There he is, poking his head out. So he saw those jackal, and I just heard him alarming. Tip, 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 tip. Maybe if I move. Oh no, he looks like he's gonna jump. Come on, little guy. It's amazing if you this tiny little alarm call from the bush baby spotting the jackal. might move out into the open shortly. You see them starting to look like that. It means they're getting ready to jump. See how they look up and they check everywhere, looking for that right branch that they can leap to. I'm just going to try and move the vehicle a little bit. Oops. You see where he went?
I lost him.
Oh, there he is. Just hiding in the shadow. Oh, very fast. Heading out on their nocturnal forage. Gone into a bit of a thicker scrub. We'll just have a quick look. Nope. Where'd you go, little guy? Oh, anyway, nice to actually get to see him like that, quite close to the vehicle. But looks like he's done a despairing act. Let's see if we can catch up with those foraging side-striped jackal. Who knows what other treasures the quarantine clearings might produce for us this evening. I'm hoping we might see a white-tailed mongoose as well. Seen a very relaxed white-tailed mongoose on quarantine a couple of nights ago. One of the reasons the side-striped jackals like this open area is because it gives them the chance to see potential predators from afar. There's, I think we caught up with the jackals. It'd be really exciting if this pair decide to breed on the clearings, and we are blessed with some little pups to view. And jackal pups in an open area like this with relaxed adults like this will become super relaxed little pups. And they are very, very cute jackal pups. Just making sure we're not going to miss a white-tailed mongoose or something else interesting. Hello, jackalas. Hi, Pamela. Pamela says she's heard that bush babies can be quite temperamental and mean, so quite the opposite of cute. And they can be when they're arguing with other bush babies. They can actually have very aggressive fights. They defend territories against other family groups of bush babies. And one of the things that's probably not so cute about a bush baby is one of the ways that they scent mark their territory. Oh, there's a zebra behind. Is that they will actually pee on their feet purposely, and what that does is help spread the urine further as they move through the trees during the evening, and spreads their scent further and further. So obviously it helps to scent mark more and more of their home range. And they can bite quite painfully. I mean, they are great feeders on little insects. Oh, jackal taking a break. Should we have a check where the other one is? disappeared all the way down there behind the bush. We're just going to try reposition the vehicle again. So I've seen and had a few pet bush babies over the years. The one thing they are for certain, as a pet, they are very hard work. Obviously, being a nocturnal species, when you want to go to bed is when they wake up, and quite a shocking experience at 3 o'clock in the morning to have a little creature leap onto your face. And I know it has given a few friends of mine some very big frights when they've come to visit. Oh, Mangawan. So the Shanghai name for jackal is Mangawan, and the Zulu name for jackal is Mpogush. Now, when I was a little boy at Pinda Private Game Reserve, certain of the staff members used to call me Mpogush, the little jackal, because I used to try get titbits out of the kitchen constantly, and I was always running around causing mischief. And in a lot of traditional stories, jackals are the mischief makers. Hi, Sherry from Colorado. Sherry would like to know if African jackals are a distant relative of the American coyote. Most certainly, Sherry. They are one of the part of the dog family, so Canis, so they would share the same genus name. So a distant relative, but a relative most definitely. Share the same genus name. So a distant relative, but a relative most definitely. So patrolling the quarantine clearings in search of a meal. So remember, we chatted a little bit about how side-striped jackals, a couple of safaris ago, are quite the omnivore. So did both disappear behind the same? There we go, there's an ear popping out. Are quite the omnivore, and they feed a lot of termites and insects and vegetable matter, and less so off meat. And when they do feed off meat, it's normally small mice, scrub hares very occasionally, but a very, very versatile animal, the side-striped jackal. Also, quite the predators of ground nesting birds. I'm just going to peep forward a little bit. I just want to check one last spot on quarantine where I have seen the white-tailed mongoose regularly in the last little while. So I know there's some lapwings here in quarantine that have very small babies, and the jackals would definitely try, or white-tailed mongoose would try take advantage of those lapwings. But lapwings are quite protective parents, and they would attack the jackals constantly to try keep them away from the area where the babies might be. It doesn't look like there's any white-tailed mongoose around this evening. Have a lapwing. There's the jackal. So jackal are quite a crepuscular species. For those who are not sure what crepuscular means, it means most active at dusk and dawn. And there we go, the jackal's about to disappear, and the next one is coming through. That's why we have a last look at this side-striped jackal. as they head off into some slightly thicker bush from the clearings to try get a meal. It's been wonderful having you on this sunset safari. Although we haven't seen a lot of the big hairies and scaries, we have seen some wonderful different sightings. And I mean, these side-striped jackal have been particularly special, and it's been wonderful to have you. And I mean, what better job in the world could we ask for? And it really is a privilege and a pleasure being able to take you out and share our passion with Africa and develop new conservationists out there. And from all of us here at WildEarth, it's been an absolutely fantastic day. Even though we didn't see all the big hairies and scaries, we had that absolutely incredible sighting on last sunset safari of Karula, the queen of Djuma, and Mvula coming through and stealing her kill. And we got to see how agile leopards really are. As she leapt over his body in that high jackalberry and then came down the tree to escape any aggression from Mvula as he stole what was left of her bushbuck carcass. So really, really great. And one of the wonderful things about the bush is that every day everything changes. So there's always something new to see, always something new to learn. I know James and myself are constantly learning, and we always try and get there, get the books, try read more. And I don't think you can ever truly learn everything about the bush, because the moment you think you do, the bush will turn around and teach you a very big lesson. So I've got a message for Gracie from the Dayton Children's Home. The next time she's watching, James says you need to let him know, and she will have the honor of naming Bob's girlfriend. Bob the Bachelor has seemed to find himself a beau at Buffelshoek Dam. So Gracie, you better be watching soon so you can name Bob's girlfriend. Thanks very much to all our regular viewers, and obviously a really warm welcome to all our new viewers. It's wonderful to be able to take you guys out on a safari, and an incredible experience that wherever you're sitting in the world, you're able to view what's happening here on the southern tip of Africa, in the middle of the lowvelds, in a 3.5 million hectare wilderness. So incredible and absolutely amazing. And for the last little minute, we're going to have a look at this last sort of light on the horizon as the dusk disappears, and it's time for the nocturnal animals to take over, and it's now the time of the nocturnal predator and all the other little nocturnal critters like porcupines and things that are going to come out. So from all of us here at WildEarth, thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you all bright and early for the sunrise safari. Have a wonderful evening.